Chapter 19 Magic Art of Japan. As in many other countries, Japanese occult practices take two main forms. In the first, which consist of highly ritualized observances stemming from the national cult of Shinto, specialists hold undisputed sway. In low magic, maginai, spells, curses, and sympathetic charms are in wide current use among the general public. Apart from the national cult of Shinto, certain secret sects indulging in magic are known to exist among the Buddhist element. In all three cases, there are both similarities to Western magic and copious borrowings from the arcane beliefs of the Chinese. The main source of Shinto magic is undoubtedly the Norito, the manuscript collections made in the 10th century, which bear marks of far earlier origins. Like many of the repetitive Indian and Babylonian rites, these involved ceremonials are not as appealing to Western students as they might be. On the other hand, the codices contain valuable material for study. Several remarkable coincidences of practice are apparent even from the most cursory survey. As in Western, Chinese, and Jewish magic, swords play an important part. Rice is used to ward off evil spirits, which is the origin of its use in European weddings today. Jewels and talismans take the place of the Solomonic pentacle, but their uses are very similar. The reputed powers inherent in gems are considered and described. The Semitic thesis that magic, particularly that part of it called black, equates with worship of the devil is, as in many other communities, unknown to the Japanese. Magic is described as good or evil, depending mainly upon the intentions of the practitioner. It is certainly not believed that the devil seeks to rob man of his soul in return for a compact, whereby some satanic power is granted to that man. Spirits there are, it is true, and even demons, but these spirits, or kami, bear a closer relationship with the Indian life spirit theory than with the organized demonology of, say, Christianity. This does not mean that there is no such thing as witchcraft. Sorcery and the doing of evil to others is both recognized and condemned by imperial decree. At the same time, there is the significant belief that he who practices bewitchment may very well die of it, and this parallels the anxiety displayed by Western wizards of old, and their preoccupation with methods of preventing demons from harming the magician himself. One of the standard procedures of Japanese magical texts contains an interesting example of what might be called emotion concentration. A hungry dog, dogs are believed to have some special occult significance, is tied up within sight of food. The emotion of hunger is brought to a fine pitch by changing the meal for one more appetizing. When this feeling has thus concentrated, the animal's head is chopped off. It is then thought to contain the essence of concentration. It is interesting to reflect two things. First, that for thousands of years man has practiced fasting as a means to clear and sharpen the mind. Those who have fasted regularly, whatever their motive, have invariably claimed that a sense of concentration of power does in fact result. This may be a reason for this particular rite. Alternatively, excluding the possibility that the process is merely sadistic, it does seem to reflect the theory, in India among other places, that there is a force connected with the brain which is capable of being concentrated. Some people attempt its cultivation by prayer or incantation. Perhaps the Japanese think that it may be engendered and preserved by this method, combined with a severing of the animal's head. Where else does this mysterious concentrated power occur? According to Japanese sources, in trees. Every tree has its spirit, which is a part of the life of that tree. What form the spirit or force takes, no one can tell. It is, however, implicitly believed that if a tree spirit is disturbed by hammering a nail into his abode, he will seek revenge. When the actual sap has been reached by the nail, out comes the spirit. This is the magician's opportunity. Dressed in white, he repeats a request to the spirit to pursue and annoy so-and-so, or whatever spell he happens to be exercising at the time. It has been said that the reason for dressing in white may be traced to a symbolic identification of the operator with the spirit's own kind. While this is quite possible, it may alternatively indicate a state of dedication on the magician's part, and the ritual purity which is supposed to be the state of all invocants, if they desire communion with the spirit world. What are the main objects of Japanese magic? No different from those which we encounter in almost every magical ritual, wherever it may be. There are rites to propitiate hostile demons, to overcome the works of rival sorcerers, whether on one's own behalf or that of clients, charms and spells to excite love and hatred, to cure disease and procure children, to make fields fertile, to secure riches, revenge, invisibility, and power. Many of the processes can be placed in the category of sympathetic magic. Typical of these is this one, for the restoration of virility. A drawing is made on paper, portraying certain organs. Then the following are mixed together: vinegar, sake or rice spirit, soya bean, oil, mixture for blackening the teeth, water, and pith. The 7 ingredients are boiled and the picture added to them. When the whole lot has been boiling for some time, the desired result will be obtained. This charm is recommended for use by women who want their husbands to become more constant. Many other charms are in use, whereby the aid of shoki, the demon-devouring spectre, is sought. Shoki, the Japanese version of the Chinese chunghui, intervenes in cases of demoniacal possession, as well as to help people whom demons have rendered indifferent to their spouses. The most powerful of all Japanese love charms is made from newts, burned and cindered. The cinders are powdered very finely and divided into 2 portions. One is carried by the magician, generally a lovelorn swain, and the other may be secreted among the personal possessions of the beloved, or sprinkled in her hair. The use of reptilian remains in love and hate magic is very widespread. In Central Europe, there was once a common belief that powdered and incinerated frogs' bones would act in a very similar manner. Whether the bones are used for love or hate, say the Arab sorcerers, whom we will allow to complete the picture here, depends on whether they sink or swim when cast into water. If they sink, they are potent for hatred. If they float, they are used in love charms. The currency of another type of love charm shows that the Japanese are not content with loving or being loved from afar. The object of one's affection may be drawn inexorably to one's presence, and for this a special poem, Waiting on Matsuo's Shore, is used. The invocant may proceed in various ways. He may write half of the ode on a piece of paper, fixing it on the northern side of something. Why the northern side? This may be connected with the Hindu and other Mana Akasa theses, which contend that the north is magnetically powerful, and that magnetism is not simply a physical phenomenon, but one manifestation of the mana, or thought force by which all magic works. To return to our lover. Within 3 days of fixing the half poem towards the north, the person desired is bound to come and seek him out. The spell is completed, and the beloved presumably bound, by writing the rest of the poem after her arrival. The lines are as follows. Waiting on Matsuo's shore this quiet evening, for you who do not come, I burn with longing, fierce as the fire of the salt pans. But there does seem to be a division of opinion upon the certainty of the beloved's arrival. This is best illustrated by the following variation, which not only invokes the lady, or gentleman as the case may be, but informs the operator of his chances. The verse is recited 3 times in succession and in one breath. There are certain other requirements too. The man or woman should go into a room which is not generally used in the very early hours of the morning. The supplicant's sandals are removed and placed upside down in the room, and the door closed. Then the operator goes onto the veranda, placing his hand on his bosom. Closing his eyes, he repeats the words of the poem 3 times. According to some writers, a voice will then be heard, telling him whether the desired one will come or not. One notices here a reflection of several interesting beliefs which exist in Egypt and elsewhere, connected with the inverted slipper. It is believed that if a woman's slippers are placed soles upwards in a room, she will quarrel with her husband. The shoes may be pointing in any direction except the side of the house facing Mecca. What is the significance of the slipper right? There are 2 main possibilities. Both Arabs and Mongolians believe that footprints and feet in general have a special magical rapport with the individual. If this be so, then it would suggest that disturbing the Egyptian woman's slippers would upset her inner, magical personality. In the case of the Japanese form, the invocant indicates his or her disturbed state of mind by the symbolism of the shoes. The other explanation? It was given to me by a Chinese friend to whom the slipper charm was also known. According to established magic workers, there are 2 forms of magic. One, that wrought by magical properties of things and words discovered by man, and 2, that brought about by rites which have been revealed to man by spirits and gods. The slipper is a true object embodying magical power, and this is the official view. Magicians are always careful to distinguish between the 2 sources, because the margin of possible error in relation to man-made magic is higher, and they do not want to lose their reputations. The dog charm is another potent object. Geishas and others particularly favor this method, and it is found throughout the islands in what might be called household use. 2 pieces of very thin paper are rolled into a string-like form, and a figure very approximately resembling a dog is made from this by twisting and knotting. There is no standard shape, and much depends upon the skill or otherwise of the maker as to whether the finished article really looks like a dog or not. The result very often seems something like the rabbits that people in the West make out of handkerchiefs to amuse children. There are, however, 2 artistic or magical conventions in the styling. One paw is beckoning and the tail is long. This model, after being placed on a special small shelf, the kamidana, devoted to supernatural usage, is pierced with a needle through one of its hind legs. As soon as this has been done, the woman addresses the dog, promising that it will be released from its torture if the lover comes. In addition, food and rice wine will be given it. Needless to say, if the spell succeeds, the promises have to be kept. There is another use for the dog image by which it becomes an ally in relation to guests. The guest is left in the next room. The girl, the hostess, goes next door, where the dog is sitting, and asks if the person is planning to stay long or not. A guest who is thinking of taking his departure goes away forthwith, while one who wishes to stay immediately expresses his intention. Hate magic, so often bound up with the magic of love, where love for one can mean hatred of another, has an interesting manifestation in Japan in the buried charm. If a person passes over a buried spell, it will affect him. This, briefly, is the theory, which is probably linked with the belief that the foot and footprint which touch the ground where the charm is hidden are especially sensitive to magical forces. Someone who intended to kill you by means of sorcery has buried here a magic object, thinking that you would pass over it. Such was the deduction of an authority called in to investigate in old Japan. It has been said that the magical object, which is a spellbound symbolical mixture of items which will be detailed later, is buried in order that the victim, passing over it, would sensitize it with part of his being. The object then had a special relationship, a link, with the victim. As a result of this, the magician would retrieve it by night and submit it to torture, which would then be felt by the victim himself. This, however, is not the standard method, if the term can be used at all in magic. It is more probable that there has been a confusion here with the waxen image type of spell. If there is a connection between the two, it is possible that the buried spell method is derived from the image curse. We read that after the presence of a buried curse was suspected, Mishinaga caused the ground to be dug up, and 2 pieces of earthenware were found, crosswise bound together, and wrapped up with yellow paper twisted into a string. There is an actual description of how to cast this spell in one Japanese text. Take a clean bit of earthenware, inscribe it with the name of the person or victim and the Chinese character for stop. Put it up in yellow paper, tie it crosswise, and bury it in the ground 3 feet deep at the place by which the person usually approaches. Note, the character stop is used here merely to stop a visit. Hate spells involving harm or death demand the requisite Chinese word. In making up spells, Japanese sorcerers generally specify that Chinese ideographs should be used, and not the Japanese. In the present work, most of the illustrations of Chinese characters are used by both the Chinese and Japanese for their charms and spells. In the case of a written spell for happiness or money, the Japanese follow the Chinese custom of using yellow paper. A request. If you enjoyed this book, please review it on Amazon and Goodreads. Reviews are an author's best friend. To stay in touch with news on forthcoming editions of Idris Shah Works, please sign up for the mailing list at bit.ly/ISF-list. And to follow him on social media, please go to any of the following links: twitter.com/Idris Shah, facebook.com/Idris Shah, youtube.com/Idris Shah 999, pinterest.com/Idris Shah, on Goodreads at bit.ly/isgoodreads, or idrisshah.tumblr.com. Or you can find the main website at idrisshahfoundation.org. That was Oriental Magic by Idris Shah. First published 1956, entire original text 1968, and published in this edition 2016. This work is copyright the estate of Idris Shah, all rights reserved. This audiobook was narrated by David Alt.